Welcome to Phonogenics 101, a Riotboy production hosted by Jeremy Gloff. The podcast where people who love music discuss albums track by track. Please hit subscribe, and if you'd like to support this podcast, patreon.com/Jeremy Gloff or Venmo @Jeremy Gloff. And now, on to the music. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Phonogenics 101. We have all been hotly anticipating this podcast because I hate to get to the ending at the beginning, but we all love this album. That's just... Does everyone here love this fucking album? Because I do.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh
I mean, this is a great album. For God's sakes, if you don't think it's a great album, just turn your camera off. David, welcome to the podcast. Why don't you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your history of Eurythmics?
Okay. All right. So I'm David. I live in Long Beach, and Eurythmics. So I got connected to this podcast because of my love of Debbie Harry, but the Eurythmics is like, and Barry Kramer, because I knew him.
Oh, yay! We love Barry Kramer.
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. Eurythmics. I of course became aware of them with Sweet Dreams. So I became a huge fan. And have all the albums. The only one that I didn't get is Empty Garden. Would you recommend that I do?
In the Garden? Oh, yeah. In the Garden. You'll love it.
Well, David,
Okay.
you have to listen to our podcast about it and then say.
That's a good idea, actually. So I will say, because I did watch, because I put in the chat that I screwed up, by not joining 1984. And I don't know which one of you said it, but it was a good point because Be Yourself Tonight came out 4 months after 1984? No wonder I never got into it, because for me, Be Yourself Tonight took over. But I want to say this, you know what? With the re-listen of 1984, it is a 10. I love it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's because of your guys' podcast, It was really good.
Anyway. Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
That's where one of those 2 views came from. I was wondering. No, I'm just kidding.
So like this particular album, Be Yourself Tonight, came out in 1984. So I was a freshman in college when it came out, and I just can't say enough good things about Annie Lennox's vocals.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And it just came back to me, David. You're eagerly awaiting the Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde podcast, right? Is that the one that you love? Or am I imagining that?
Well, no. That's how I got connected. And you know what? I mean, Debbie Harry's my number one. And I was thinking about it before I signed on. Blondie, Debbie Harry. I'm really into female vocalists.
Okay.
I really love a good female vocalist. So I would say my number one. And we're not talking about vocals, but we're talking about more style and stuff. And Blondie's my number one, style and, just my kind of music. Eurythmics is probably number 2 for me of female vocalists. And then Stevie is way up. And also Alison Moyet. There's a bunch,
Sinead O'Connor.
Oh,
Sinead. I saw Sinead O'Connor. I saw her in concert. She was
so lucky.
I was just listening to her yesterday when I watched the new episode of Outlander. Because she did that's the last thing she recorded was the theme from Outlander.
Oh, bless her. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you're talking about that. I was listening to Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde just last week. But then I was going through some Blondie songs and just thinking about Eurythmics and how much Blondie and Eurythmics were like one another. I don't mean necessarily sound, but just that both of those groups did whatever the hell they wanted to.
Yeah.
And it always was something different. It always was something unique that no one else was doing.
Yeah.
And, for a long time, I don't think either one of them got credit for that.
Right.
I think their longevity and just people have said, yeah, you go back to that and you realize these folks were doing things not that they didn't get credit for it, not that they weren't successful, but it's interesting when you look back at Blondie's discography, you know, not everything was a massive hit. Things that I would have thought that should have been number one, you know, just like some of the Eurythmics stuff. So it's just fascinating to look at those two groups.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's great.
I feel like this
Jeremy.
album, yes.
Can we do a Yaz? Yaz
Yes, I was going to say that.
Not a fan. Sorry, guys.
Oh,
Sorry. Alison
What?
Royer kind of scares me a little bit.
What?
He's
great.
He's
Well,
amazing.
to see her in April.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, I'll watch your guys' podcast.
are
on
you
that.
going to Cruel World? Is that how you're going to see her?
No, she's coming to Atlanta. She's touring the Key album.
Really?
Mhm.
I did not know that.
I respect her place in synth pop history. And I danced at the castle in Tampa. I danced to many Yaz songs at 3 a.m., I'm sure. So, much love for Allison. Much love for Allison. But tonight, we are here to talk about Annie Lennox. And I feel like this album, their fifth album, right? Yeah, their fifth album. I feel like this is the one that solidified their legacy. Because I feel like if they would have done one more synth pop album, they would have gone out like... This was kind of a switch in style for them. And do you guys agree a little bit? Like, it definitely wasn't more of the same. Because before this album, I kind of grouped Eurythmics with, like, the Thompson Twins. Who else? It's kind of that new romantic wavy thing. But they totally surpassed it all with this album and kept going longer than anyone else did.
You said exactly what I was going to say. This is the album that did it. This is the album that made them and made their longevity in that sense, that gave them the credence that they needed. Unbelievably that you would say that with Sweet Dreams and Here Comes the Rain Again and the 1984 soundtrack and all that. But this album is what did it. I think it was the pinnacle of their creativity. Now we can talk about it.
And it was kind of a precursor to, Revenge was, their rock album.
Right.
Whereas, even though there's definitely synth songs on it, but this album kind of like, it kind of merged the two of them, but the fact that it started out with like, a full brass rock and roll song, was, and it almost kind of cleaned the slate from 1984.
Right.
Such an abrupt,
It was like
shift.
no holds barred. I mean,
Yeah.
it came out and just.
I mean, I remember being in Atlanta at the mall when I think I was getting tickets for something and happened to go to Record Bar, and they had like a pre-poster, like a promo. It was like a little pink slip card that was just sitting like on either the register or maybe it was on a bulletin board of like the release date for Would I Lie to You, and it was just sort of like, what,
Well, up to this point, I always, from 83, 84, I always kind of like, Eurythmics and Culture Club are both huge, and they all had their huge singles, Here Comes the Rain Again, Karma Chameleon, Church of the Poisoned Mind, Sweet Dreams. But then, I still love Boy George. I buy his little self-release things. But then they came out with Waking Up with the House on Fire, which was not a hit and did not break new ground. And Eurythmics just kept going up. And they kind of broke the glass ceiling in that era, I feel like. So I remember I had my little radio as a kid, and Would I Lie to You came on the radio, and I'm like, this sounds like Eurythmics. But I'm like, is this an old like tourist song that they're playing on the radio? Because to me, it sounded. I had that should have been Greatest Hits, the tourist vinyl. I would have been 9 years old, but I found that at a record store. And Would I Lie to You reminded me of Tourists with the full band arrangement a little bit. So then at the end, and the Rhythmics just had 1984 out, so sure they can't have a new album out like 4 months later or 3 months later. But the announcer announced the song, and the rest is history. Do y'all remember the first time you heard Would I Lie to You?
Yes.
Do you remember your reaction? Like, what did you all think?
My brother brought in the single, And he said, okay, I didn't even know it was out. I had no idea. I was still listening to Sex Crime and yeah, which has the best remix. I love the Would I Lie to You remix. But anyway, he brought in the single and he said, I'm going to play you both sides and you tell me which one is the single. So, of course, the B side is Here Comes That Sinking Feeling. And so I think, you know, again, what everybody's saying, you know, Would I Lie to You was such the extreme thing. It was not anything they'd done before, which, of course, I guessed what was the single. Anyone should have been able to. But I think he thought, okay, is he going to get this? But it's when my brother and I were still just buying singles. We hadn't bought an album yet. You know, we were young teenagers. We didn't understand what that was. But we did fairly quickly after this. I still think Be Yourself Tonight was the first Eurythmics album that I actually bought. I think so. But anyway, yeah, that's my memory. I remember it distinctly. He coming in and making me say which one is the A side.
Now, I'm going to say something controversial, and it's going to piss everyone off, but it's just how I felt. So I loved this album. I loved the single, but I remember thinking this was 1985, right? So I would have been 10 years old. I remember thinking that they just weren't as cool anymore, though, because she had the orange hair. I felt like they were more mainstream and not quite with like the edgy cool people as much anymore, and a little bit more adult contemporary.
Absolutely. Yep.
But it was the look for the album.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, she was kind of a bad bitch on this album, and you know, Would I Lie to You was, you know, the swan song. I mean, it was you know, the introduction of the new I don't know, version of the Eurythmics. There's a better word for that.
It was Annie saying, "You think I'm a gender bender?" I don't think so.
I agree.
You know,
I thought it was them kind of, you know, shirking the pigeonhole of being a synth pop band.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
But if some of y'all who may have been in the fan club at the time may remember, they put a call out for fan club members to, if they were in Los Angeles at a certain date, to be in the video. So they didn't tell them what it was going to be, or what the song was. And if some of you may remember Peter Fenton, I was a close friend of his, and he was a big collector. And I think he was in the audience for this filming for Be Yourself Tonight.
I do
Or
remember,
for Would I Lie to You? Sorry.
I do remember that, John. I was a member of the fan club. Then I lived in Los Angeles, and when they said the date, it was when I was somewhere else.
Right.
It's one of those big disappointments that I was like, I remember it was something that I couldn't get out of, like a wedding.
Man, you could have been in the video.
Could have been in the video. I know the first thing I remember with Be Yourself Tonight was a Rolling Stone article that came out about the same time.
Yeah.
But when I heard Would I Lie to You was driving, as I said, I lived in LA. And as I did with all Eurythmic albums, I would drive up to I lived in the Hollywood Hills. I would drive up to Mulholland Drive and drive all the way across to the ocean listening to the album, and then listen to it a second time coming back.
Now,
so I remember that.
It's weird looking back on this album because they had 3 monster singles and a minor single. But at the time, like, I didn't realize what a big hit album this was at the time, because the singles just kind of snuck up on you, and then, you know, then the album passed. But this was a huge album, and like, it was kind of understated at the time, I feel like. But looking back on it, they had these heavy hitter cameos, but these were the times when, like, now cameos feel so weighty, don't they? Like, if there's a big name on an album, it's like featuring blah blah blah. But this album, you know, the cameos weren't even a selling point of the album. Like, they weren't part of the promo. They just happened to be on the songs.
It's just baffling to think like how many good songs they kept putting out like year after year. And like I was 9 years old when this album came out, and I was like, you know, every record they came out with, I didn't know about In the Garden until after the fact. But like on Sweet Dreams, Love Is a Stranger, and then you know, just like every album had like songs that you were just like, I gotta listen to this song like a million times. And then Would I Lie to You, There Must Be an Angel, I Love You Like a Ball and Chain, and It's Alright Baby's Coming Back. And you're just like, how could they just like just keep coming up with all these great tracks. Like it's unbelievable, and they're all so different.
Yeah. I
This
feel there was
album
a
is really like I feel like eclectic in sound. It's not all like synthy. It's just like there's like rock and sort of electronic weird ballads, but less weird than their other stuff.
yeah.
But much more mainstream, as everyone has said. But I just remember absolutely being like, they're so awesome. They just like keep putting out consistently great music.
I remember there was like maybe in the Rolling Stone record guide they said something like, "Oh, the Eurythmics were a great singles band." They always had like the single on the album, but I really disagree. I feel like their albums are really strong. Like there's so many album tracks I love more than the singles, or just as much as, especially on this album. All right, well, the cover to me, this album came out so close to 1984. I thought the cover was the next evolution after 1984 because it still had that grainy effect over the photo, just like the 1984 cover. I feel like it was the same kind of effect. It was interesting. Eurythmics was written in not that usual font. It was very bold. And then the cover, the title was just on the back. So, really blurry pictures. There's pictures from the Would I Lie to You video on the inside, right? With a blue tint on it, if I remember right. But what did you all think of the cover when you saw it? I love it. I think it's brilliant.
Loved it.
Yep.
I liked it too, and I thought the font kind of harkened back a little bit to the earlier. Like if you look at This Is the House, that 7-inch single, like even though it's vertical, it still had that sort of. I mean, it's as close to Helvetica as you could,
Yeah.
you get.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things too. Lawrence Stevens, again, is a genius who did all their design. But I think it's one of those things because I think they were having a hard time what's going to be the cover. And then suddenly, this screen of Would I Lie to You videos up. And I think it's one of those aha moments, that would work really well. Here's square that off with Annie. And I think that would.
Yeah, Dave was telling me a story about that. They were actually in the office trying to decide what the album cover should be, and there was a video still of Would I Lie to You? This picture was on the screen, and Dave went, "There it is. Let's use that." That's how I recall Dave says it came about. It was just like that.
I never knew that was from the video. I didn't realize the front cover was also from the video.
Yeah.
And there was a controversy about this album cover, which there are in the remasters, the CDs, there are snippets of some of the photos, and some of the other photos have been kind of released, at various times. But the original cover, or at least the original photo shoot, was the two of them in the masks.
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Which would not have been good. I'm glad they didn't use it.
Well, I feel like there's a softening of the image here. You know what I mean? Like, and the sound's different. I just feel like the artwork's an evolution, just like the music was. And
I was kind of underwhelmed by this, but it does reflect the sound of the album really well. She's a hard-ass rocker chick, and that's the sound that dominates the album, so it fits perfectly. But, I was very young at the time, and I thought, I want to see Eurythmics and all their, beautiful clarity, and I was a little underwhelmed by that. But now I appreciate it more as I'm much older. Yeah.
Well, when you think about, the Touch album, I mean, you really don't get much better than that album cover.
Right.
And that the font, the logo, everything about it. So it was quite a departure. It was, as John was saying, basically Helvetica down the side and this screen grab kind of thing. But when you were holding it up, and you look at it that way, it looks really good. I think in hindsight, you see, actually, this is really, really good.
It is.
But I think at the time, from all the things that they had done, and the visuals were so strong.
Yeah.
I think that was, a bit like, let me think about this.
So of course, Israel released a different B-side cover.
Oh wow, that's cool.
So
That's weird.
in Israel, they printed the lyrics of each song, and I'll hold that closer.
Thanks.
And they featured that image of Dave and Annie on the back.
Is that from
That
the
almost
Here Comes the Rain Again video or era?
Or photo shoot, maybe.
It does look like from Here Comes the Rain Again. It does. It's definitely the touch
Yeah.
era.
And that
then
was
there's-
Israel?
Yes, it is. And then there's Korea did the whole series of albums with this kind of faded, washed out green. They've done a lot of albums. These are bootlegs, but that's just a variation for collectors out there. Yeah.
I like that.
So, what do you guys think of the title "Be Yourself Tonight"? It's kind of a nondescript, almost generic title in a way, but it fits the album. But I felt like "Sweet Dreams" was such a strong title and touch, and then "Be Yourself Tonight" just didn't sound like what I thought Eurythmics' album title would be. But I love it. I think it's kind of disarming in its unexpectedness. I don't know.
I
What
love
do you
it.
guys-
She like
That's
said
good
it in the video.
advice.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good advice.
They said it in the video, and then it like is revealed in one of the songs in the late, towards the end of the record, and like I loved it.
Yeah, that it's kind of an obscure piece of just one of the songs. It's not a title. It's
Right.
I like that, and I like the idea that the idea of, especially them saying it, that you should be an individual. You should be who you want to be, and I think that resonates again, 40 years later, more than ever.
I know,
be
that's
whoever
right.
You want to be. Be what Don't be like everyone else, especially right now.
Yeah, that information was hugely influential to me because I was very young, and her whole look was just like, always be yourself tonight. Just like you want to have your short hair and dye it orange, go for it.
Right.
I love that because I didn't know what all the labels and everything meant at that time. So it was like,
And there weren't even as many labels at that time, honestly.
what's that?
So there weren't even as many labels at that time as there are now.
Do y'all remember the posters that were in every record bar and it was, had the album cover, but there was sort of a tagline, be who they want in the daytime, but be yourself tonight. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think they was underlined or something, but,
1985 was a weird year for pop music because 1984 was such a monster year. You had Purple Rain, Touch, Like a Virgin. And then 86, Madonna's my number one. You had True Blue. So Be Yourself Tonight kind of fell in that 85 year because you had Be Yourself Tonight, Around the World in a Day. Prince was 85, right? What else was 85?
Like a Virgin, Songs from the Big Chair.
Songs from the Big Chair.
True Colors, was it 85?
No, that was 86.
86. Okay.
Stop Making Sense by the Talking Heads. Was that 85?
That might have been 85. I'm a Pat Benatar fan. I feel like Seven the Hard Way was 85.
Okay.
Which wasn't one of her biggest albums, so it was kind of a weird year for my ladies.
Weird album.
Oh, Stevie Nicks, Rock a Little, 85.
Oh,
I
yes.
can't wait.
It got released on my birthday.
One thing about
Simple
this
Minds.
record. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Simple Minds, wasn't it 85? Once upon a time.
Yes, I was going to say
Live and
that.
Kicking and all that.
Oh,
Yeah.
One of the things about this album that I thought was kind of, because it did propel them in sort of a different, pop direction. But, I was one of probably the weird kids who liked them in 83, 84, and even though they were charting and not, people were still critical of Annie's appearance in terms of, being androgynous or perceived as masculine. And I remember the kind of comments you hearing, after What I Lied to You came out and the video came out, that, I would hear these, looking back on it now, misogynist remarks about, oh, she'd be, she's pretty when she's in a dress, or she's pretty, but, she'd be pretty if she had like long hair, that kind of stuff. And I was just like, ugh, these people are exhausting.
they did the same thing to Sinead O'Connor 1 decade
Yeah.
later.
Can't win for trying.
And that's exactly what Annie was kind of going up against, sort of the point she was trying to make.
But I feel like even at, because they went more rock with this album than even more so with the next one, I feel like she always kept, her femininity. And she was always like a little feminine, a little masculine. She always brought a little bit of everything to the table, which is why I loved her.
She was being herself.
She was just being herself. And we're all a little masculine and a little feminine, aren't we? I just hope.
And as an artist, she was doing what art, should do, which is make people question and, ponder and kind of consider.
People think, yeah.
Right.
All right. Well, let's go into the track by track. We already talked a little bit about Would I Lie to You, but talk about a monster single, man. She's really wailing on the vocals. This introduces Annie Lennox as a soul singer. And I feel like maybe on the electronic albums, we knew it, but maybe not everyone knew it. And having Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin on this album, it really showed the league they were in that maybe we didn't realize. Like when Touch came out, I didn't think like, oh, here's a band that Aretha and Stevie are going to be on their album. Like I loved them, but you know what I mean? It's really put them in a different league. These were legends that were on the album, and I feel like Annie and Dave kept up. Like they held their own right next to the legends,
Absolutely.
and then some.
I love on the single and it's probably on the 7-inch too, where it actually says on the front from the forthcoming album,
Right?
And it even has the catalog number, which to me I think kind of harkens to a lot of like 60s soul singles.
Wow.
They would, you'd have the catalog number sort of on the front, and it kind of, I love the album cover because you definitely know it's Annie.
Yeah.
Or I love the single cover. You definitely know it's her because her eyes.
I've never seen that, John, ever.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Now, is this the first album with Dave on the cover? On the back, at least?
I
think so.
Well, he was on the
It was like on the
inner sleeve.
Right.
No, I mean on the cover though.
Yeah.
They let him out. They let him out for the record store to see.
And then the actual album, it has the sleeve, the printed picture, inner sleeve, but then it has the lyrics are on its own individual 12x12.
Remember that?
Yeah.
I was gonna say something, but I totally forgot. All right. Well,
Would I lie to you?
Would I lie to you? I loved it from the moment I heard it. Annie's wailing. Great songwriting. I love that there's still a little bit of electronic in there. Like there's just a little bit of a synth pulse just kind of underneath, which I think, kind of bridges us into this new era. But what a monster freaking single.
It was huge. I mean, you didn't go anywhere that you didn't hear it on the radio in the U.S.
I remember what I was going to say.
I never got sick of it.
I'm sorry. 1987 or 1984 was like late 1984. And we said the album came out 4 months later, but when did the single come out? Because that came out before the album. What was the gap between 1984 and the Would I Lie to You single? Does anybody know? Nope.
I will let you know.
Yeah, let us know. I'm too. All right.
I want to say Sex Crime came out like in the fall, didn't it?
Yeah, and Julia was released in January, so 1984 was still going, still had legs in the very beginning of 1985.
So it was released. So 1984 was released in October of 84, before the film actually came out, and then this Would I Lie to You was released April 9th of 85.
Jeez.
So, wow. In the spring.
And January of 1985 was when they started writing Be Yourself Tonight. I just watched an interview with Annie today where she's talking about it. January 1985, they hadn't written a single song for Be Yourself Tonight. And that's when Dave said, we're going to write one song every day. And they did. But think about that.
God, wow.
Think about that, how quickly they turned that, and that the record company turned that around. That's insane.
There's a really great short film of them recording in Paris.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure most of you've seen it where, they do Ball and Chain.
Yeah.
And,
no.
they,
oh my God, I need that link.
It's great.
I have to watch it.
do
It's
too.
been a
That
long time, but
Please send that link.
Yes.
yeah,
It's such a spectacular version of Ball and Chain.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
And
I'm
there
so
are
excited.
several different versions of that interview in different segments. So if you find one, look for some of the others because you get different snippets of it. But that version of Ball and Chain is off the charts. It's
Oh my
so good.
god, I'm excited. I love that.
Correct
And
me
they're
if
just
I'm
standing there in a room doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Mike. You might know this, but if I recall, Ball and Chain came out. I have a 7-inch radio promo from the UK. If I'm not mistaken, they released that to the radio before Would I Lie to You, even though What I Lie to You was the actual single.
Well, I'm in New Zealand, so I
Right.
recall Would I Lie to You, and the album came out almost exactly in that same week. It was just flooded everywhere. And I seem to recall Ball and Chain, that I know that promo 7-inch talking about one side stereo, one side's mono, came out later. Honestly, I couldn't tell you, John, but I know it all happened very fast in a matter of months.
And talk about forgetting about 1984. Like no one.
Yeah.
This came out and was so huge that it just was in the dust. All right. Well, does anyone have any other things they want to say about the song Would I Lie to You?
I have notes
Incredible vocal.
I'd kind of like to share.
Okay.
I don't have to go first.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so let's see. It's more about how it makes me feel, which is, so vocally, I'm like, well, the song makes me want to like party for one thing, and I also think the way she sings "Would I Lie to You," I kind of think, okay, yeah, you probably would. And then when she sings "Believe Me," I'm like, okay, I believe you then. Yeah.
Well,
I think it was a great track to open the album with. I mean,
Yeah.
it just, hits you in your face right there.
Yes.
Get ready. Get ready is what that song is saying at the beginning
Yeah.
of that album.
it kind of goes back to the girl group with the call and response chorus. I have Nick's notes. Our friend Nick, he said, this is one of the 3 songs from the album that I recognized. In the past, I jokingly referred to the song as Would I Tie Your Shoe? Okay. No good reason for this. The song possesses a great guitar riff in the orchestration. I also approve of the automobile sound effect. So there's Nick's notes.
Okay.
I was waiting for Nick to talk. I didn't know Nick wasn't on. He's such a hoot to talk
I know.
about the music, the music. That's cool. That's a cool thing.
We want those young kids to like our stuff.
Yeah. Collector's Fun. Would I Lie to You? Released on colored vinyl, blue, 12-inch, yellow,
Oh.
Wow.
and red as well. So it was on 12-inch and 7-inch.
7-inch.
Blue, red, yellow, and just the standard picture sleeve. Yeah, and I'll come back to more on that later. Good fun.
And great remixes also. There's kind of a stripped down version that I
Great
love.
remix. I love that remix.
In fact, I remember collecting the 12-inch singles as a 10-year-old from this era. They were all great.
Yeah.
The person that remixed that did several songs. I mean, he was remixing. He also remixed on I think
Eric Thorne?
Revenge.
Eric
Eric
Thorngren.
Thorngren,
Yeah.
He's in the video for Sex Crime.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
He's the African American. Well, he's English, so I think he's English.
Oh.
But yeah, he's
That's
in the
cool.
video.
Didn't
Of
know
course, the remasters says it's the remix, but it's actually the extended version, the long version of Would I Lie to You. So that's a boo-boo on the remasters.
Yeah, because I remember the remix being more stripped down, and I had to go onto YouTube and find what I remembered the remixes being.
It has now been released on just released recently on the Now That's Music or whatever it's those compilations.
Yeah.
So it has finally had a proper digital release. iTunes released again. I think it was supposed to be on its Dance Vault mixes, but it's a different remix that had never been released. So if you don't have that,
Oh.
I think you can still find them on iTunes, but whatever. But it's a slightly different mix, so it's worth looking out for.
And I remember playing these 12-inch singles just as much as the album
Oh, yeah.
proper.
Yeah,
Um,
me
Oh,
too.
Yeah, yeah.
Do y'all remember when they performed this on MTV,
Yes.
where they destroyed the set? I think Dave smashed his guitar,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
And what is Annie wearing in that? The outfit she's wearing is the outfit from Missionary Man.
Oh.
Annie
Oh,
Lennox
really?
doesn't throw anything away. That she's in that black cat suit. That's the Missionary Man suit.
she did eventually. Well, she buried them in dirt in that exhibit.
Yeah.
But I think one thing about the single, about Would I Lie to You, though, that the guitar riff from Dave
Yeah.
is so iconic,
Yeah.
so brilliant. And I was watching the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction performance earlier today, and I just get goosebumps when they start with Would I Lie to You and Dave's guitar, and it was brilliant. And Lynn and I were right there together.
Right there.
Down
Side by side. And Dave had bleeding fingers at the end of their songs. Do you remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, his hands were bleeding.
Wow.
Giving it his all.
And up to this album, I never thought of Dave Stewart as a guitar player. You know what I mean? They were a synth band, so for him to come out of the gate really playing the guitar with a really crunchy guitar riff, like, you know,
Well, he had given up the guitar on purpose to make at least Sweet Dreams maybe in the Garden. I'm not sure. I have to go back and look. But on purpose to make himself learn something else. But yeah, he was a very good, before that, very well known for his guitar. And then, yeah, exactly what you said.
And I feel like they're trying to distance themselves from the tourist sound, probably.
Yeah.
Going more with the synth thing.
And
wasn't this about the same time that he was doing some stuff with Tom Petty too? Don't Come Around Here.
Yeah.
Yes.
That was actually, I was about to bring up, besides Elvis Costello, Aretha, and Stevie, he had the horns from Tom Petty's band on the album.
Oh wow, okay.
When I first met my husband and we were getting, chatting about me, he's very into music. And we were talking about favorite guitar players, and he listed his, and he said, "Oh, and Dave Stewart of Eurythmics." And I'm like, "What?"
Love,
and that did
it. I know, right?
Sealed the deal.
It did.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, I just looked up the Dance Ball Classics on iTunes. Are you talking about the one that says extended version?
Yes.
Would I lie to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It isn't. It's not the Eric E.T. version. It's a totally different version.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you have it?
No, I just found it it is on iTunes still, so I'm going to download it after we get done.
Yeah, download it.
Drop it in that group chat, because I never remember all the things we talk about.
And somebody please post that video of them recording Ball and Chain, or whatever.
Yes, could you?
We will.
Please.
I'll find it.
Mark, could you put that interview you watched today too about them writing "Be Yourself Tonight" one day song every day?
Yes, I'll try to find that. Yes.
Thank you.
Well, speaking of romance, and Lynn found romance with her husband. This next song is about romance. We have Stevie Wonder on harmonica. There Must Be an Angel Playing With My Heart. When I bought this album, I hated the song. I'll be honest. I'm like, oh, this is so like, ugh. I never liked Stevie Wonder's harmonica playing. I know, sacrilegious, but I listened to the album last week and I did love the song. So I'm more of a romantic in my older age, and I think it's a beautiful romantic song. I'll start with Nick's notes. He said Stevie Wonder on harmonica. Annie's vocals are superb here, and I find the male moans at the end of each chorus very amusing. The verses are punctuated by a fun little keyboard, and that sonically resembles a clavinet. I should wear my glasses. The song also possesses the most quotable lyric on the album. I walk into an empty room and suddenly my heart goes boom. I do love that line.
That's a good line.
I also dig the line about a multitude of angels. So I did not like this song in 1985, but I love it in 2025. And certain you guys love the song all along, so go ahead and talk about it.
Wow. Loved it all along. It was one of those, the first time I heard it, I was like, just give it to me on loop.
Mhm. Yeah, I loved it too. And the kind of the operatic. Is that Andy doing that part?
No.
I didn't think so, but I loved that. And it's so funny because my best friend, who's still my best friend 40 years later, she liked the song too. So one year I bought her I found a promo 12-inch of it. It wasn't a remix or anything, but it had, just the radio version on one side, and then it had Grown Up Girls on the other side. And she ended up liking Grown Up Girls better than she did There Must Be an Angel, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. Which, I mean, she still likes There Must Be an Angel, but that song brings back good memories like that for me. So it's a great song.
And of course, we should note it's their first #1 single in the UK.
Right.
Isn't it? Is it their only #1?
And the only #1.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow,
Right.
crazy.
Yes, I should have said it that way. I've got a great quote from John Azelwood from the Evening Standard, who said that There Must Be an Angel was the last real moment where Annie Lennox exuded unfettered joy. It was about the moment of falling in love. One of the happiest songs of the era, not only by Eurythmics, but of the era. And I thought that was a great way to sum that up. It is just absolutely, positively, positive.
Ethereal.
It is just joy. It's fantastic.
So the US 12-inch single just had the album version with Grown Up Girls,
Right.
but the UK one did have a remix.
Yes.
Yes.
So I had to buy the UK version. Was it by E.T.? Was it the guy that did the Would I Lie to You remix?
I think it just may be by Dave.
Oh, okay.
There's a remix of this song.
Yeah.
So there's
I did not know that.
There's two versions because I have
Yeah, there's two versions.
the first one has just a sticker, so it's the same sleeve with a sticker.
Yep.
And then they printed it with the
Special dance mix.
special dance mix on the
Ooh, I'm
side.
gonna have to find that.
And you can also find that was also recently released on one of the Now That's Music. Eurythmics are always the second track on these 40-track albums. But again, this remix was not included on the remasters. And there is a really nice digital version of it now on Now That's what they call whatever it is, Now Music.
Yeah.
But it is included, and it's a really good version. I always thought the remix sounded a little tinny. I didn't love the volume on it, so that's sort of been fixed with this CD version. But I think in the UK it just came out like the US version, where it was just the album version, the 12-inch, and then the Grown Up Girls on the back, and then they came out with that one with the special dance mix. So I was never quite sure why it wasn't in the first place, but probably to do something to try to boost sales to get it to #1, I would imagine.
Now going back to the mentality of, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry. The Spanish album also says Solo de Harmonica Stevie Wonder.
Oh.
Oh,
So that's
Nice.
unique to Spain. So that's kind of cool. Yeah.
Now, speaking of Stevie Wonder, I'm taking myself back to 1985. And in 1985, Stevie and Aretha weren't the legends that they'd become, as I remember. To me, at that time, they were just like older people that were still having hits. Because, Stevie had just had a huge hit with I Just Called to Say I Love You, which was, I did not like that as a kid. And Aretha was like Freeway of Love. I didn't know about Respect and like the legends that,
Cute child.
to me, they were just like, same with like Diana Ross, just like older people still having hits. So it's interesting. They really had legends on the album, but I didn't realize they were legends at the time because they hadn't aged into that.
Okay, can you just all be hating on me now, please? I can't stand this song. Absolutely can't stand.
Hold on. Let me get my pop.
I knew you were ready with that one, Mark.
What are you saying, Mike?
I'm glad you said it first.
Thank you.
I don't
Oh.
hate the song, and I actually appreciate it
Oh,
unto itself. But I found the same. For me, it was sort of like you have the kind of coolness and coldness of
yes.
Eurythmics of
Yeah.
1984, and
Yeah.
even Sweet Dreams and Touch.
Yeah.
And even though Touch had Right by Your Side on it, like this is like Be Yourself Tonight, Right by Your Side. It's the like peppy song,
It's so over the top. It's so shrill and camp. And I appreciate the vocal gymnastics are incredible, but my God, I can't get into it. It's
But don't you feel like they're not trying to, like they're taking themselves seriously? Like Madonna on True Blue, like Jimmy and True Blue are pure camp. I feel like talking to me, like Must Be Talking to an Angel. I feel like they're really trying to be like serious soul
I
artists.
think it was camp.
You think so?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Song structure
The
wise,
cherub
it's a
and
great.
everything, and the video and all that. I think it was campy.
I mean, it's a great
The
pop
video I
song,
didn't like.
but for me, it sort of was like fluffy.
Yeah, to me, it was more adult contemporary than camp. Like I put it more next to like The Greatest Love of All than Jimmy.
I think the thing is, and Dave talks about it a lot. I think he looks at it as a very weird song. That it's one of their strange songs. That it's so bizarre, and it's got all of these elements in it, and somehow they push it all together and make it work. For some of us, that is.
So many of their songs are like bizarre. I mean, I think that's what I love so much about them is that you're never gonna like get comfortable with their music because it's always gonna be changing and moving in different directions. And I mean, like, as an impressionable kid, I thought that was so cool that like it wasn't just like, oh, this sounds just like, because a lot of bands, this sounds like the last album, and this sounds all the tracks on that one record sound the same, and Eurythmics were like, nope.
I mean,
it doesn't work.
Although it is the most synth pop song on the album, whereas everything else is.
And I think too, again, we go back to a little bit what we were saying in the beginning. Anyway, I think that I was saying and some other people about how the album was so consequential to their longevity. And I think the songwriting on this track, on There Must Be an Angel, is so brilliant that it starts out with the scat singing, La Dowdy, and then the first verse, and then they come back to it, and it takes the first verse and goes out and ends with the scat singing. And I just love the songwriting aspect of what they do sometimes, that there's so much thought to this. And I just, I can listen to this song anytime, and it makes me feel happy. It makes me feel good.
Taking Weird and throwing it together works on Grown Up Girls. That's a killer song. It does not work on There Must Be an Angel.
That's why I liked Grown Up Girls so much, because I'm like, oh, here's Eurythmics. Because it was like...
That's a rocker.
When I hear There Must Be an Angel, when I hear that harmonica, it takes me right into That's What Friends Are For territory.
Yeah.
Because I was like the same damn era. So that's not... I didn't want my Eurythmics in that territory.
Me too, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not that. No, it's not that.
And by the way, That's What Friends was for. That's What Friends Are For was the number one hit of 1986, not 1985. Thank you very much. So
Thank
it wasn't
you.
quite the same era.
Yeah.
It's that same damn harmonica sound. I don't care if it's... But I like this song now, though, so I'm not... I know I'm talking shit, but I like it. I think I have a crush on someone that... I left 2 notes on his card. He didn't write back, but that's a whole nother podcast. But I love the romance. My heart goes boom. I'm here for it all. And what a great track, too. After Would I Lie to You? Like, you don't expect... Because look at the second tracks you had. Regrets. I've Got an Angel. Sex Crime. So this is... Belinda was the second track on In the Garden, right? So what a different... Not where you expect the album to go.
Well, and again...
I'm kind of a hater and a lover of this song.
When you get back to Be Yourself Tonight, every single song on that album could have been a single.
Yeah.
every single one. That doesn't mean that every song would have been a giant hit, but every single song.
Yes.
And when you think about it, you know, there were 4 singles, and What a Lie to You backed up with Here Comes That Sinking Feeling. I Love You Like a Ball and Chain on Sisters. And I Love You Like a Ball and Chain, we'll get to it, but they thought about that for a single. And then It's All Right had Conditioned Soul. So when you think about it,
yeah, the whole album
every
was...
song was released on a single. But we should talk about Grown Up Girls because as the B-side, and you know, there are 9 tracks on Be Yourself Tonight. Why do you think they didn't say, why don't we just put this song on the album? It is totally different than anything else on the album.
I felt, when I listened to Grown Up Girls in the car, I felt like it was the bridge between 1984 and Be Yourself Tonight, because they had some of those arpeggiated synths that were very prominent in 1984, but it kind of had the doo-wop, Would I Lie to You background vocals. Her lead vocals were processed like a lot of the stuff on 1984, so I really felt like it was like a bridge between the two, and I don't think it would have fit the album.
Yeah,
it probably doesn't.
And some of it, like, there's parts of Grown Up Girls where it isn't, her lyrics aren't totally discernible, like, as to what she's...
I have no idea what she's saying.
Her enunciations. I mean, you have to pull it. Now you can find the lyrics online, but I think you had to have, like, gotten a Japanese pressing to find the lyrics to it.
But as a kid, I was not a fan of There Must Be an Angel. So when I heard Grown Up Girls, I'm like, oh, here's the band I love. And I just listened to it over and over.
Yeah, it was great B-side.
It's a great song.
I didn't like it as much.
Oh, no. How come you didn't like it?
I was a grown-up girl.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I didn't. I mean, it was a good B-side. It was not something I would have wanted to hear on the you know, as part of the album. I just didn't like it.
And that's when B-sides were B-sides.
Incomplete to me.
It almost seems to me, I don't know the history behind the song, but it almost seems to me that they may have recorded it. You know, it seems a little more conceptual, and that they may have recorded it earlier and just eventually found a, you know, I don't know if anyone else knows the history of it, but there's actually, while I'm not a huge fan of the single "There Must Be an Angel" or as it comes on the album, there's some good covers of it, and there's a band called Fantastic Plastic Machine from Japan that it's actually like a bossa nova version.
Well,
oh wow!
Yeah, kind of in the same vein as like Pizzicato 5. And it's actually I like the version. The single is like 9 minutes long, the remix, but I think the single version may be about 4. But it's worth checking out. You can find it on YouTube. I don't think it's on any of the streaming. For whatever reason, the album that it came from, called Luxury, is not on like Spotify.
What's the name of the band?
The band's called Fantastic Plastic Machine.
Okay.
Heard of them.
Yeah, and it's actually, I think the name comes from like some 60s movie.
I feel like I keep talking shit, but I keep going back to when I was 10 years old, and I had a lot of feelings. I was a dark kid. Like, I was listening to Nina Hagen, non-sex monk rock in 1985. So, but I also loved like I was like, I wanted to be Princess Diana with the prince. But to me, the song just wasn't romantic. Like, it just was shrill and foreshadowing Gian and Friends. So that's my final.
What if Culture Club had recorded it?
I feel like it would have been a little slower, and maybe it was the beat, like the la da dee at the beginning, that just turned me off.
That's the best part.
No offense to anyone that loves this song, but if I wanted la dee dee la dee da, I'd pull out my crystal water.
Who else could have done that? I mean, that's just the point. I mean, nobody else could have done this. Nobody else could have done it.
Madonna would not have been able to pull it off in that era to like do a song like that.
No. And like I said, it grew on me when I played it a couple weeks ago. I'm like, I did feel a little romantic.
And I think the video, I think the concept of the video in Dave's mind, probably, I think it was supposed to be a lot more darker than it actually turns out to be. I think the concept, and I think I don't think it quite turns out probably what was in his mind, because I think the conception of it was going to be kind of a dark thing, maybe that ends up with a little bit of light,
Right.
as they tend to do.
It's kind of a bacchanalian,
Yeah.
feast of some, like like the emperor's new clothes kind of, or the emperor wears new clothes kind of. It seems like it was supposed to be kind of a lighthearted fiasco, but there is sort of elements of it that are a little darker.
Yeah. But anyway,
All right.
a little bit of division on this one, I think.
Yeah.
Are we all still friends?
Surprised. I'm actually surprised. I would have thought it would have been like a plus 10s across the board.
I was gonna say, are we all still friends? But what I really should be asking is, are we all still
Everyone
Dion
have
and
their own
friends?
opinions. That's great. That's one of the things that makes it interesting.
It
Keep
also,
shining.
I was looking at the charts and ironic, or oddly, What I Like to You was number 5 in the U.S. and I think number 4 on one of the rock singles charts. But There Must Be an Angel only got up to 22 in the U.S., which was probably one of their lowest charts.
At the time.
Between Sweet Dreams and Touch, not counting 1984.
Going to be
All right.
a weird sell to people. Yeah.
Well, life is good because I found a group of people that will talk about There Must Be an Angel playing with my heart for 25 minutes with me. I mean,
Okay.
I freaking love it.
Sorry.
I love it. All right. Well, now we're going to move on to any other thoughts, parting thoughts.
You asked about the 12-inch. I think the remix, Dean Garcia remixed it.
Okay. Well, we're going to keep going back to 10-year-old Jeremy. Would I Lie to You? A different direction, but I loved it. There Must Be an Angel. We already talked about it. But now, here we go with this song. You have Sadie and the Gravel Stompers. You have these weird fucking creepy sound effects, like a ball and chain. I loved this song from the first time I heard it. I loved it when I was a teenager, in my 20s, in my 30s, in my 40s, and I love it at 50 years old. This song has a little bit of that vibe from the early albums, that darkness, but it also has the full band sound of this album. It has Sadie and the Gravel Stompers, whatever that was. It captured my imagination. There's a darkness about this song, and her vocals are fury. Like they're just on fire. So, am I going crazy? Does anyone else love this song as much as I do? I love you like a bone.
This is one of my favorite songs of Eurythmics, and I've told this story many times. I think it's when I first met my husband, but we play this song. When we play this song on Saturday mornings, it's at full volume and the walls vibrate. So I'm sure our neighbors are like, oh, they're listening to Ball and Chain again. Because I love this song, and all the different versions of it are fabulous. It's great.
And with Dave using the way he did
the phaser?
The in and out?
Yeah. I thought that was
like
great.
one of the first times it had been done.
Yeah.
A stereo recording like that.
In the car.
You had to have 4 speakers.
Yeah,
you
so
had
cool.
4 speakers to hear it.
Well, I think not only is this a great song, but this is a great production. Like, this is a great studio version of the song. Like, to this checks off all the boxes. Like,
he was producing for Tom Petty at the time, and this would have fit on Tom Petty's Southern Accents record really well. The sound is very similar.
So
I didn't realize there were so many different versions of the song.
Oh yeah, there's yeah.
Well, just the different live versions. I mean, the performance of it in concert is every single time, every different iteration is gobsmacking. It's just
slow or drawn out.
It was released. It was May when it was released as a promo in the UK, and then it came out in the US for radio, because obviously they were trying to promote the album to radio. After What I Lied to You, and this may have even come out, before There Must Be an Angel.
I have to say though, I'm glad the song wasn't a huge hit because this is like in my personal treasure chest of things that not everybody knows about, but I love so much.
In the fanzine in the Eurythmics fan club, Annie talks about it. She actually drew a jail cell scene. She and Dave in black and white jail outfits, and they talked about that. They had a concept for. I think she said, I didn't look this up. I should have, like a funny video for it. So, and that promo poster I was talking about, there were promo posters also that listed it as one of the key tracks. So I think all the time that there was a thought that it would be a single. Now it ended up the B-side for Sisters Are Doing It For Themselves, which I find really interesting. Yeah,
you have a song about codependence on the B side of a song about independence.
You know, it's a song that has been performed in their various tours, and even Annie's tours. So it's had this longevity where they really became, you know, okay, if you're going to go see them in concert, you're going to hear their greatest hits. You know, and a lot of people don't do that. They do a lot of their album cuts and all that. They're pretty much, you know, you're going to hear the greatest hits. But Ball and Chain is almost always in that lineup.
Apparently, yeah. There's a great cover version of this when I was looking around this last week or two by Kelly and the Kelly Girls.
Really?
And it's pretty cool. I'll put it in the chat. But yeah, Kelly and the Kelly Girls.
Now, as you all remember, I always, as a child, pretended I was the Croquettes. Like, I'd play the video and then I would be in the background. And on this song, I got to be the Croquettes again with all those great background vocals. I mean, I know it was Annie doing them, right? But I still pretended I was the Croquettes.
Well, and the Croquettes weren't there.
No, they were gone. They were gone. Same thing with It's All Right.
Did Nick weigh in on this?
Nick said, very enjoyable track, very percussive with splendid guitar overdubs. The highlight were the gravel effects and the ball and chain group vocals. Was that Dave doing the ball and chain? Is that Dave?
I think so.
I think there's some backup singers listed on the liner tracks for that.
Such a weird tone. The song is weird, but in every way I love. Like, definitely one of them. Go ahead.
The story of his mom on the ceiling, Sadie stomping on the gravel, is great.
Well, that's his mom. Sadie's his mom.
Sadie's his mom.
What's the gravel? What's the story? Is this going to ruin my?
He sent his mom up with a couple of people up to stomp on the ground upstairs when they were recording it, and then they finished, and he realized he better go get his mother, and there was his mother like. Still stomping up there.
What genius production though! Like that was really kind of Lindsey Buckingham. Like, let's get the sound of the gravel.
You didn't know that's Sadie Stewart.
No, I didn't.
Second husband's name was.
It was very mysterious to me. I'm like, it was kind of like Camille on the Prince album. I was like, who is Sadie? Like, they're back in the '80s. They're just people on the albums. You didn't know who they were. But it was
Sadie.
It added to the allure of things because you had the mysterious Sadie right next to Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin. Any other thoughts on Ball and Chain? Ball and Chain.
Thumbs up. Big thumbs up.
Oh, God. Thumbs up, legs up, everything up.
Yeah.
Genius.
Yeah.
All right. The next song, as a 10-year-old, I kind of grouped it with There Must Be an Angel. Like, I'm like, oh, another cheesy song with an old person singing it. But I do understand its cultural significance. I thought it was... And he was saying the word sex again, like on Sex Crime. Or Aretha said, the inferior sex. And in 1985, I'm like, oh, they said sex in a song. Here's Nick's notes. We'll start with Nick's notes. Entranced by musical contributions from the Heartbreakers. So the Heartbreakers are playing here. I enjoy the drippy bass line courtesy of Nathan East. Aretha Franklin is credited with super vocals in the liner notes, and her vocals are indeed super.
The
Well-
thing is, I think Annie keeps up with Aretha Franklin absolutely 100%. So I don't even think, you know, I know they give her super vocals, but I mean, I think it's pretty matched up. Annie sounds just as good as Aretha Franklin. And I mean, I think sometimes you have to like, okay, which one's singing? I mean, I think it's kind of obvious at some point, but I mean, I think you could really, if you didn't know, okay, is it the same person singing? I think it's fantastic.
What do you think about people that paired up with Aretha Franklin in 85, 86? Do you think, I don't think it was a strategic decision that people made, but do you think like putting Annie side by side with Aretha and George Michael side by side with Aretha really got to showcase what powerhouse vocals they were in a way that maybe we wouldn't have thought of otherwise? You know what I mean? Like, Aretha, you know, right here, Annie Lennox can keep up with Aretha Franklin. And that's a big deal. Because not a lot of people could keep up with Aretha Franklin.
George Michael could too.
George Michael could too.
Those were two great pairings, actually. I actually wonder how those came about. Like,
Well,
Well-
with Sisters, they were originally going to approach Tina Turner, but she was busy.
I
don't feel like Tina would have brought what Aretha brought to it.
Nope.
I agree.
And I love Tina. Like, I love, you know, that was an 86 album, Break Every Rule. Mad Max.
Great on Would I Lie to You?
Yeah. 85 was the year of the Mad Max soundtrack, wasn't it? We Don't Need Another Hero, One of the Living.
Great songs.
Yeah, great songs.
I had also heard that Tina Turner didn't think it fit the image that she wanted at the time, and I think, it's one of those things that I think Clive Davis, who was producing Aretha's album that was coming out the same year. Of course, this track is also on her album, Who's Zooming.
Oh, Who's Zooming Who? Yep.
And I think the idea was probably Clive Davis was like, oh my, can I get these, you know, very hip, modern British people and get them on Aretha's album? I think he could see the dollar signs in it.
He Santana'd her.
And yeah, how good it would be for her image. And I think she was very, if you read between the lines, I think she was very reluctant to do it. But I think she was sort of, you know, like, no, really, Aretha, you should do it. You know, it would be good for you. And so I think, again, I go back to the beginning of this podcast, that this duet is also something that was incredibly important.
Yeah.
To the music world and to the public in adhering the importance of Dave Stewart and Annie Lennox to the music scene and how good they were. And had it been Tina Turner or had it been anybody else, but that it was Aretha Franklin,
Yeah.
was very important to the history of Eurythmics and to their longevity.
Because it put Annie in that category of like a
yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That said, it's my least favorite song of this album.
Yeah, I don't think it's the best song ever.
And it's one that I've been really lucky. I've seen them multiple times in concert. It's like, oh yeah, I hear they're going to sing Sisters again. I don't mean it quite as jaded as that, but
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you.
What? Who said that?
I totally agree with you.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Wait,
but
is
Here we
Mike
go
going to
again.
talk? Is Mike
Yes,
talking?
I am.
Can
I'm
you
waiting.
share
I'm
what-
waiting.
Lynn and then Mike. That's the order we'll go in.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's all I want to say. I mean, I certainly recognized, and I certainly recognize socially what was being said. I mean, 40 years ago, saying all these things about women was a big deal, so I do recognize that, and that's great, but it was a little sort of heavy-handed to me.
Can I say something very controversial before we move to Mike?
More than that? No.
Just because a song says something important doesn't mean it's good. We all remember Sing from Songs of Mass Destruction.
Lost me on that.
Okay. Mike.
All right.
Talk about that in 6 months.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in 6 months.
Well, thank you, Lynn. The song is absolutely socially very important statement. Great cause, great cause. Props to that. The song is boring. I've never liked it. The riff is catchy, but that's all. Okay, and I'm going to go even further and say I'd much rather have preferred to hear Tina Turner do the vocals on this. Aretha, I'm sorry, I've never really appreciated her vocals at all. To me, I know she's the goddess of soul and all these accolades, but her voice to me is like nails on a chalkboard. Tina
Yikes.
would have been a much.
One's gonna get you.
I'm going in. I'm going in.
Good gowns, beautiful gowns.
Tina would have been a much better choice for me. The catchphrase "sisters are doing it for themselves" has become an ingrained part of pop culture as well. And we've all seen T-shirts with "sisters are doing it for themselves," so that just shows you the impact of the song. I think it was even used on The Simpsons at some point as well.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks.
Wow.
And I'm not going to take all day, but from a collector's point of view, 4 different sleeves. Yeah.
They all had different colors, right? Yeah, they're cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
Blue, this cadet.
The blue one.
The
12-inch and 7-inch.
Yeah. And 7-inch.
These are cool. That's the one I have right there.
Remember that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I have.
And the racing car driver.
Oh, that's cool. I've never seen that one.
So these were all repeated on 7-inch. Yeah.
Oh, so cute.
But this brings me to the rarest item I own in my collection. One of the absolute most rarest
I know what
things.
this is.
The cassette single.
Oh,
Okay.
shit.
Oh my.
Wow.
So that is really cool. Now, what's really cool about this is this was only made in New Zealand, which is bizarre. And it's absolutely rare as hen's teeth. I only found this probably about 5 years ago, and I paid a huge amount of money for it. It turns out there was a guy living in Christchurch in New Zealand who was selling it. When I transacted the purchase, I said to him, "Where on earth did you find that?" And he said to me, "My daughter collects Madonna, and she went into a secondhand store and found a box of cassette tapes in Christchurch that she bought, and this was in there."
Wow.
She bought the box for
Wow.
$10.
Shit.
Oh my gosh.
Would you care to share how much you spent on that?
Do you really want to know?
I want to know.
Oh my God.
Should we
You
guess?
think of- Yeah,
$200.
$300.
higher. Double that.
500.
600.
600.
$600.
Is that New Zealand dollars?
Yeah,
Australian
New
dollars?
Zealand dollars. But that's like 300 US.
I just
So I
love
said
this.
300.
This is a song you don't even like.
I know, and I hate this song.
You would have spent $800 if Tina was on it.
I know. I know.
Well,
How much
interestingly
would you get
enough,
if you liked it?
If you played it, does it even sound good?
Don't
I've
play
never
it. Don't
Do you
play
still have a
it.
cassette player?
I don't have a cassette player, but I have to have the single.
Is it just the
interesting.
song on both sides? Is it just the song?
Or is it
This
12-inch?
is doing it, and then there's Sisters are doing it ET mix,
Okay, the ET mix.
and then I Love You Like a Ball and Chain, and that's the
Okay.
same both sides. Yeah.
It did actually in New Zealand. It went to number 6, which is the
Oh.
second highest. Ireland, it went to 5, and that was the highest it went on any world charts.
It was all those people buying that cassette single in New Zealand.
I know.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and the thing on the 4 different sleeves, I think the one at the typewriter is the main sleeve, the big sleeve that was the US sleeve in most places, and that's my least favorite sleeve of anything from Eurythmics.
Really?
Yes.
I don't like any of them really,
But
but
Mark,
I think that one's
since you're Subway posters, there is a Subway poster of this that exists. And
Yes.
what the interesting thing about that is that it doesn't say Eurythmics, Aretha Franklin, or Sisters are doing it for them. It's just this image.
Wow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just the image and nothing else. And I know it exists because our dear, wonderful Steve Gaylor has it. And
Yeah.
Do
he
you
bought
think
it.
there was a companion poster with the titles that might have?
No idea.
Sometimes there were like that, John. You're right.
And
Yeah.
Steve's in a different time zone. He always wants to join, but it's in a different time zone. Maybe we should do one during the afternoon on a weekend. But I did love the cover art because it had the little circles and stuff. So they really kept some of the themes going on through the artwork of the singles of this album, which I loved.
I mean, and to their credit, I mean, it really did sort of become anthemic.
It's an
you
anthem.
know? Yeah.
It's very anthemic. I agree.
It is. Yeah.
So on the
Pouring
reverse, I absolutely loved the song and listened to it obsessively when it came out. And as I was very young, the lyrics were super empowering to me. And so later on, when I learned that there was like racism and sexism, I was always like confused because I'm like, but that song was a big hit and
Yeah.
everybody liked it. And it was really baffling to me that things like sexism existed, that women weren't treated equally. Because it's like
Yeah.
those women on that song can kick any man's ass. Like I don't know. It was very eye-opening when I learned a lot of those things, but Eurythmics were super empowering to me, and absolutely loved. Like this record, it was like the first 4 songs that just played over and over again, and a lot of songs kind of suffered because I was too busy wanting to hear these 4 constantly.
And another, I mean, one thing in the context of the album that well, it's not one of my favorite, but in the context of the album and sort of the vibe of it, you know, where the record really evokes Annie's love for Motown and soul, which, you know, they tried to bring out on Sweet Dreams with Wrap It Up, and then you kind of hear, you know, you hear tinges of it, but this was really like with Would I Lie to You and Sisters, really kind of like pushed her to that level of, you know, she can go up against any, you know, and I think she's very humble about it too. You know, she's certainly not a like egotistical with her vocals.
No, she's not showboating.
Right.
Didn't they change the lyrics though when originally Annie had written the inferior sex is now superior, and Aretha wanted them to change that to the inferior sex has got a new exterior. I've read that several times.
Yeah, I've
Yes,
seen clips of that too.
Yeah.
And to Aretha's credit, she was correct in correcting
Yes.
that lyric.
Yeah.
It was very smart in correcting that
Yeah.
lyric.
Yeah.
And and I think it's on YouTube, in one of Annie's solo concerts, and she performed Sisters. I think she performed Sisters on the piano, and she talked to the audience. And there's a great clip, I think, from Boston, and she said, she started sort of whispering, and she said that Aretha was very specific about the lyrics, and that she took Dave Stewart aside, and she said, "What does she mean when she says ringing their own bells?" And I think Aretha was a little not sure about Annie, and wasn't quite sure if that was sort of a sexual comment. And of course, Annie laughed uproariously at the piano, and she said, "I thought it was about female empowerment, but whatever." I'll see if I can find it.
Yeah, that's great.
That's fun.
Well, if you guys do look at my Discogs want list, you'll see that one of them is the Pointer Sisters cover of this song that they did with Natalia, who's an Australian singer. It's really not the best thing the Pointer Sisters ever did, but I'm a completist, and there's a single edit on this CD single. So
I had no idea that they covered that.
yeah, but another cover, one of the last things they ever released, I believe.
Really? I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Wow.
Because they're not actively recording anymore. And now that, you know, Anita and June are both gone, and Bonnie. All right. Well, are we taking a little intermission for a couple minutes?
Yeah. The last one on the first
All
side.
right. All right, we are moving on to side 2 of the album. As a kid, side 1 was a wild ride. You had Would I Lie to You, then There Must Be an Angel, then Ball and Chain, and then Sisters Are Doing It for Themselves. Side 2 starts with kind of a pan flute. The song is Conditioned Soul. What exactly is a conditioned soul? What does that mean? Does anybody know? Nope. I remember like I had a babysitter. She's like, a conditioned soul, and then there's another thing that's the opposite. And I wish I could remember what it was. But it was 1986, and I was on a family trip in Coxsackie, New York, which is like an hour outside of Albany. We're up in the Catskill Mountains in this general store, and I just remember they're playing Conditioned Soul on the radio. Like, whatever the store was, they're playing the whole Be Yourself Tonight album. And when I walked in the store, they're playing Conditioned Soul, which I thought was so cool. But this is the song where the title comes from, Be Yourself Tonight.
Yeah.
What do you guys think of the song?
Gorgeous. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love
I like
it.
it. Yeah.
I love it.
And it and Ball and Chain are the two songs that they cut from the Eurythmics live video album. I have no idea why.
Well, Nick's contribution is very atmospheric. I wish I'd had been the backbone of the entire song. The subtle melodied percussion flourishes are in breathy flute passages are a nice consolation. So, you know, this was a little, you know, with the pan flute and the stuff. What year was Graceland from Paul Simon? Because I had kind of that pan flute.
That was, well, is this a pan flute? Because a pan flute is just a little thing, isn't that?
Right.
And this is a full flute.
Oh, is this a full flute?
I think so. I don't know. Graceland was more in the 90s.
Yeah, it was late 80s, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I love Conditioned Soul, and I love the flute and the guitar. It almost, the back and forth around the bridge is almost conversational to me. I love this song.
I like how it gets dark for one verse.
And
like
the guitar riff at the end. Woo!
She gets kind of menacing for a little bit.
Yep.
This is interesting. I never really thought to look up Conditioned Soul, but it is actually there's a definition to it that comes out of Vedic, I believe, which is like, you know, Eastern or Hindu. And it says conditioned soul means the living being, the spirit soul who is conditioned by laws of material. Or it also says one who has accepted something illusion as reality. Condition means that due to imperfect desires, the spirit soul becomes dependent on material conditions for their satisfaction. Huh. So there were still vestiges of her, you know, interest in probably Krishna, and you know, at this time, I think, if I'm not mistaken, she was still, you know, not really avowed, but was still sort of promoting her vegetarianism, and so there's still some Eastern thought in her,
right?
Yeah,
I love the. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead.
I love the lyric. I'll never fall into some lover's arms again. And then at the end, it says, like you said, Jeremy, it gets darker, or I'll never fall into some killer's arms.
Yeah.
Again. I love that. That's so cool.
Because it starts off so soothing and relaxing, and those
and then it goes into that guitar riff.
Oh yeah, but those harmonies are beautiful that she stacks. I just looked up. Graceland was '86, so it was only 1 year after this. But I feel like, you know, this is a little bit of a world music sound here. But it's interesting how Annie can go from light and beautiful to really dark just in one verse and menacing. I once again got to do the Croquettes background vocal part on this song. I can't stand it.
My only complaint with this song, which isn't even a complaint, is just that the first 4 songs are so good that this wasn't as good for me. So it's not that the song is bad. It's just that those first 4 really do it for me, and this one is a little bit lesser. But I still love every track on this record.
Well, the B-side the B-side of the album does have sort of a totally different vibe, doesn't it? It's almost like the cool, soft. Not that it's all soft. Certainly, Conditioned Soul isn't, but it just a different vibe.
It's like an intermission.
I actually
it's like an intermission because then you have those last 2 songs.
I do too, Lynn.
I'm sorry.
I played side 2 nonstop.
Yeah, I love the second side of this.
Now reading the lyrics in context of knowing it's a Krishna concept, that it's pretty profound. I found a quote. It just says, "A conditioned soul refers to a living being who is entangled in the material world, bound by desires and ignorance, and therefore trapped in the cycle of birth and death, lacking spiritual realization and devotion to Krishna." So this makes perfect sense for what, you know, from her divorce from her husband during, you know, the 1984 era. You know, it's melancholy, and it's like her expressing her struggle with, you know, spirituality versus materialism.
And everyone thought Ray of Light was so innovative. Annie Lennox did it 13 years.
Well, knowing that, John, it really, and I don't mean to jump ahead to Adrian, but it sort of is, Adrian's also kind of about that, because they're talking about material things in that as well. So it sort of is.
It gives me a whole new respect for this. I mean, I already like the song a lot, but it gives me a whole new respect for it. You know, it makes me introspect that she's, Annie was very like informed, about her, and becoming more so as she, got older.
What's interesting to me about Eurythmics albums is I feel like these songs couldn't be on any of their other albums. Like Conditioned Soul is such a Be Yourself Tonight song to me. Like I couldn't hear this on Touch or even Revenge.
Yeah.
It's funny, when I was listening to Would I Lie to You today on the way home from work, it made me think like, what would Wrap It Up sound like if they had recorded it in this era? A full band sound. It would be, it'd be an R&B, rock and R&B song.
And it's interesting because I feel like what made that work for me is it was kind of like a synth pop version of R&B, which worked for that era.
Right, it was great for that.
Yeah,
that time period for.
And then they one-upped it with their own song. Would I Lie to You?
Well, didn't the Fabulous Thunderbirds covered Wrap It Up? And,
God!
Talk about it did kind of have a bluesy, rocky type vibe to it.
I thought their version was kind of flaccid. Wrap it up. I'm like, I'll listen to my Annie Lennox version. Thank you. All right, David, welcome back. I thought we lost you. I'm glad you're back.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to stay on. My internet's tripping, and I got an email saying it's out till 1:30. So I hope so.
Oh no!
I'm having so much fun.
Oh, I love having you here. Well, let's take a quick pause then. If we might lose you. All right, so Conditioned Soul was a wonderful song. Now we have another cameo performer, but once again, just like the other ones, it's kind of understated. We have Elvis Costello showing up for the song Adrian. I will read Nick's commentary to get us started. It's interesting choice to solicit the help of Elvis Costello on vocals. Despite my love of Elvis Costello's discography, I'm more ambivalent about his contributions here. The song is otherwise a worthwhile flirtation with dream pop music. So I feel like if you like Adrian, this is a little bit nudging to some of the sounds on In the Garden. Wouldn't you say just a nudge? Like that, the kind of full band, dreamy vocals. I love this song. I think it's beautiful.
Does anyone know how they got together? Or how they got paired?
I don't remember any details too much about it, even through the fan club. But
I thought he just dropped by or something.
That's my only memory too, is he just dropped by. Something to that effect. Yeah. But
the backstory of the song, I don't know if anyone else here is aware of what. I mean, apparently it's about a fan. And I think I know which fan it is, but I don't know if we can talk about that. But it's one of their like super diehard fans that does make an appearance later on in their universe. As far as I can't say factually that's who it's about, but from what I've read and heard from various people, that it was sort of written inspiration by, around a almost obsessive.
Interesting.
Does anyone acknowledge what I'm talking about?
I know of whom you probably are referring.
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah.
Yep.
I always thought it was a sort of an anti-war song, is what I always took it from. But I didn't know that backstory. I've never heard that.
I just always thought of it as kind of a love song, a little bit. Or like a little melancholy. I like her background. Once again, we kind of have the girl group background vocals with the dream pop.
Well, I always thought when she sings "Wake Up to a New Clear Morning," I always imagined she was having a play on words, nuclear.
Oh.
Exactly. That's what I've always thought.
That's what I thought it was at first.
Blow to bits in outer space. And I thought, oh, okay, this is because that was very much the climate at that time, right?
Yeah,
right?
yes.
85, still Reagan era.
Yeah. So I always thought she was alluding to, like you said, Mark, it's a peace song.
Yeah, Adrian, don't you understand? Fools like us are always dreaming, and when you go to bed and cover up your head, it's better if you try to stop remembering, and the world is slowly dreaming to wake up to a new clear morning. Some of them, just half your age, get written off page by page. Adrian, don't you understand? Fools like us are always dreaming, and when you go to bed and cover up your head, it's better if you... And then it just repeats the stuff, and then the last part is, and the world is softly sleeping while your fears are in their keeping. All the planets making haste to blow bits in outer space. Adrian, don't you understand?
Yeah. That's how I interpret it. It's a beautiful song. Beautiful song. Vocals are
fatalistic.
Yeah, the thing at the time, the mid '80s and the '80s was, the big fear was we were all going to be blown up by nuclear war, and the planet was going to be destroyed by mankind. Just in a different way now, but that was the big fear then. That was
everything comes back in fashion.
Yeah, yeah. But I think for me, it's there's not a track on "Be Yourself Tonight" that I can't listen to. I think I may have overdone it years ago, and so I don't listen to this track as much. But when I do, I think it's a great track. And it didn't get a lot of attention, despite the fact that Elvis Costello was on it. Probably because Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin were,
but his part was also very understated. Don't you feel like?
Yeah.
I love the vocals. Favorites. Sounds great. Yeah.
I thought the transition from Conditioned Soul into Adrian was really nicely done.
Yeah.
There are a couple in different musicians that have done that sort of transition. The only one that comes to mind is in Sgt. Pepper's When I'm 64 goes into Lovely Rita. And I love that transition, and I love this transition. It's just something I like. I have to listen to them as a companion. I'm losing my voice now.
Oh, I don't know why the hell I ever thought it was like a love song to a ex-boyfriend, because I actually listened to the lyrics. It has nothing to do with that, but, whatever. It does have that melancholy, though. Another
one of Annie Lennox's single word name songs, Jennifer, Sylvia,
Belinda,
etc. Julia. Yeah.
I like that it's not it's also vague and not gender specific.
Right.
Which I really like about the song too, because she could be talking about anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to something David said earlier, that kind of reminds me of something Debbie Harry would do with her lyric writing. Like, write a song about a nuclear explosion cloaked in a romantic kind of duet with Elvis Costello. So.
Yeah. Exactly.
Any other thoughts?
Wait, it has a new meaning for me because, the lyric, Adrian, what is it, can't you understand? I have an Adrian across the street from me who just doesn't understand what it's like to be a neighbor.
Oh!
You can play this for him.
Yeah, play it.
I do. I want to.
All right. Well, moving on. The next song is one that I played over and over and over, and I really got to live out my Croquettes background vocals fantasy on this one. To me, this is the most synth song on the album because it opens up with that synthesizer, but then it goes full Be Yourself Tonight mode with those horns and a beautiful guitar solo from Dave. Lots of layers. It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back. The fourth single in the United States. I don't think it charted. The video is kind of cool, but this is one of those songs to me that didn't need a video. It's so visual. And I feel like the Take It Easy on Yourself Tonight at the end is kind of a harken back to Be Yourself Tonight. Nick's notes, lacks the same commercial viability and hit potential as the first two songs on the album, but this is nonetheless one of my favorite tracks on the album. It continues to be rewarding after repeating listens, and I agree. I think this song's a masterpiece.
I do too. I remember I didn't have cable, so the only thing I could watch for music videos was Friday Night Videos, and I like distinctly remember when they premiered "Would I Lie to You," and I distinctly remember when they premiered "It's Alright, Baby's Coming Back," and the song didn't do very well on the radio, and I was like pissed because I was like obsessed with this song, and the video I thought was so cool and so memorable, and I absolutely love this song. This is probably my favorite song on the record, actually.
Yeah.
I had a local radio station that played it to death. The one of the DJs absolutely loved it, and it did chart, but it was very low in the U.S. But it did well in other parts of the world. I think it was partly, the fourth single and everybody, charting and albums and stuff. A lot of times it's based on sales and different things, and if a lot of people had already bought the album, so
right.
Of course it's backed with another B-side, that Tous les Garçons, that you can't get anywhere else, which I absolutely adore. But It's All Right is one of the key Eurythmics songs. It's just, and again, their brilliance and the, I don't even know if it's call and response, but whatever you would call it.
Yeah, call.
Going back and forth. I mean, just brilliant songwriting. They proved themselves, I keep going to this, but they proved themselves on this album that they could do so many different things and do them so well. Great video too. I mean, everything about It's All Right. And by the way, I believe this is right. That video was the first video ever made in that concept of the art. It was made before Aha's Take On Me.
Oh.
But Take On Me got released first. But it was the first one made.
Wow.
Is it Willie Smacks?
Willie Smacks.
Yeah. Who did it?
I mean,
I'm saying the video was, I kind of thought it was a bit of the sort of peak of them. There's all these little like lots of hidden symbols and hidden messages, and I mean they're definitely referencing. I mean, you can see little clips of In the Garden, early photographs as the train's kind of speeding by. And I always loved her, from an image perspective, like she looks very different. Her hair was longer in this video, and every time I see it, it kind of reminds me a bit of Laurie Anderson.
Okay.
She had that kind of spiky, wispy, I mean, we're so used to seeing Annie with like cropped hair, and I think this is maybe one of the first ones where you kind of see her with longer, besides In the Garden era.
I remember watching the video, like VHS, not DVD, wasn't around in those days, and just like pause.
Oh, yeah.
All these images. Like those early images, John, from In the Garden and that photo shoots, and it was all wiggly on the screen. I'm going, oh man, that's so cool. Pause. Watching it all go by. It's a great video.
Lawrence Stevens stars and the different little everything. So and you had to be a huge fan to like catch all that. And it was
right.
All the Easter eggs.
Easter eggs, that's it.
Yeah.
But it really was fun, and it just
fantastic song.
Such a cool
great song. Yeah.
Well, she looked beautiful, and she just really went for it with her vocals. I mean, it's a slam dunk. This song is.
Absolutely.
I read once where, and I haven't been able to find it. It's in some large. John may have it, but she talked about this once. Dave was sick, and she actually finished the song in the studio. And I think it was one of those that's like he was sick for 2 or 3 days, and then she actually went in and finished it, which is not really what she usually does. And I think she has a very affinity for this song. So yeah.
No, they did it on the Eurythmics. I saw Eurythmics only once at the Peace Tour, and they did it, and I was so excited.
Yeah.
Now, when I was a kid reading the liner notes, I always noticed that some of the songs listed Lennox Stewart. The song listed Stewart Lennox. And there was kind of a different vibe with the Lennox Stewarts. Did anyone else ever notice that? And I wonder if it was intentional. If the ones where she was listed first, she had more of a hand in writing, or she did the lyrics and he did the music. I always wondered what the significance was, because
I've never heard them explain it. I don't know if anyone else has.
And I guess, I think it may have to do with, like, you know, first credit songwriting. You know, like maybe like it's, you know, the sort of balance of it. Like it, you know, Annie may have like had more to do with the lyrics and melody. You know, Dave, it's still, you know, I mean, it's still a Eurythmics track and it's still
right
Dave on it. One thing I kind of noticed, just looking at the liner notes for the album are so pretty extensive. Like every single song has every credit broken down. Is one thing that we don't really get, you know, sort of acknowledged too much is, you know, Annie's thought of as a vocalist, but she plays a lot of keyboards on all their albums, you know.
right. And it wasn't until Diva came out that I really thought of Annie Lennox as a keyboard player.
Right, a pianist. I mean, we all knew she played flute, but even I think, you know, on the Touch tour, she, you know, dabbled on some keys during that concert.
All right. Well, any other thoughts on It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back?
I've got some fun facts, collectible stuff if you want.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back. Probably the most uninspiring sleeve you've ever seen, but here it is.
But there's that typeset though from the album cover.
So these were given away as a gatefold 12-inch and 7-inch with colored vinyl of Would I Lie to You. So this one is the gatefold with the red Would I Lie to You
Wow.
vinyl. I can't open these because they're sealed. This is the blue Would I Lie to You giveaway, and this is the yellow.
Oh wow!
And this was repeated on a double gatefold 7-inch. Would I Lie to You? It says on the sticker, 2 singles for the price of 1. It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back plus Would I Lie to You double pack. That's the blue, yellow, and the red. And then there's the US sleeve, which has thankfully a wonderful picture on it.
That's
7-inch,
so great.
12-inch. But this is really cool, really fun. A magazine in Russia, a music magazine, released it or published it on a flexi disc.
Oh,
wow!
And so we have the flexi disc here. This is It's All Right, Baby's Coming Back. There it is.
Wow.
And there's a tiny little article on Annie just there in the little corner.
wow!
Yeah. So I think I love these little double packs. I just think they're the coolest little things.
How much did that Russian magazine cost?
I don't remember. I actually think I might have picked this up as part of a trade with another Eurythmics fan. Yeah.
Okay, that's so great. Like, wow.
I love that this came out in Russia in a flexi disc.
Wow.
I love that. Yeah.
It does make me wonder if they just pressed a whole heck of a lot of those colored vinyls, because they were pretty easy to find and they were kind of all over the place.
They are not hard to find at all. They're everywhere
Yeah.
still. These double packs are hard to find, and when you do see them now, they're so expensive.
Wow.
Interesting.
I never had. I don't think I even really understood that. Yeah, I never had those. So,
Yeah.
are you saying in the UK the video sleeve never came out? I always thought that that white boring sleeve.
This was only in
then
the
they
USA.
replaced it.
Yeah.
Is that right? I did
Or
not know that.
I think there's a Japanese 7-inch with the. I think I have a Japanese 7-inch. with
Japanese
that
one of
sleeve.
these as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
There it is. But the UK, Australia, New Zealand, we've got the boring old white one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll never quite understand that.
I would have
Me
liked to
too.
have seen I would have liked to have heard a mix of that one. You know, if they're gonna mix, there must be an angel. Please mix.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
all right. Come on.
That would have been so good. You're correct.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Even the 12-inch is the same version, single
Yeah.
LP version.
They probably just thought we can't make this song any better.
I know.
Let's just leave it alone.
It was so
Isn't the beat
deflating
like
when I
that,
opened
though?
it up. because you're looking at the cover and you're like, oh gosh, maybe it'll be, because the cover is a little ominous, or not ominous, but obscure, and then you open it up and then you're deflated because it's like, ah, damn, it's the same thing that's on the album. It's not a different version at all. But I'm so glad I have it.
All right. Well, any other thoughts on "It's All Right"? All right.
Great track.
Yeah, great track. Here comes that sinking feeling. Now, Nick, he always hates spoken word. We know that he never likes any songs that have spoken word. Then he said the actual singing is more serviceable, and the tom-tom playing is very primal. Fine enough song, but one of my least favorites on the album. Now, I love this song. I think you have that menacing Annie. You have Dave shredding the guitar, kind of like on the first track. To me, this song does feel like that feeling of choking disappointment. And just, it's chaotic. It kind of hurts. It's messy. It doesn't feel good. And the song kind of just summed that up for me. Does anyone else love the song besides me?
I love it.
It's a great song.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a very good song.
That was
that next song were a great way to end the album.
I always love when Annie talks and sings, and we get a little bit more of that a couple albums from now. On one of my favorite songs, which we won't even mention yet, but it just has that menacing. Like the album goes from sweet to menacing, when you least expect it, and I don't know. It's the magic of "Be Yourself Tonight" and the magic of Eurythmics.
What I love most about this song is the chaotic noises just all thrown in there. There's layer upon layer upon layer of sound, and it's even more obvious when you listen to the alternate version of this single. It's one of my all-time favorite songs, and my ear is just straining to hear all this chaotic noise. It's so Eurythmics. I love it.
Because it kind of starts off with the crowd noise and fades in.
Yeah, and there's voices talking, and there's all this stuff going on. It's just pure Eurythmics to me.
It's a very much harkens back to what they would do on the Sweet Dreams album with all the different
in the garden even.
And the chaotic stuff going on.
Yeah.
And it was years before I knew that the alternative version's on the 12-inch, right?
The alternative version's the B-side of "Would I Lie to You," I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The 12-inch.
Yeah.
And it was years before I knew that because I don't think I played it because I assumed it was the album version.
See, I didn't even know. So is it a lot different, the alternate version?
Annie's vocals are pushed further to the back, and there's just a lot more noise going on.
Mm-hmm. So it's on this. It's on this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It certainly is on the 7-inch. I'm not sure about the 12-inch. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's on one of them. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might be the 7-inch. Yeah.
I think it's probably a mistake. It's probably, an alternative version because they don't say it doesn't list it as alternative.
It just says,
"Here
comes the sinking feeling," right? Yeah. It's so cool. Love it.
Yeah.
Is it the same length? So would the time stamp be different?
Format.
Okay.
Same format, but just different noises pushed forward and back from what you're used to hearing. Yeah, really cool.
I wonder if it's on YouTube. I'll have to take a look.
Post these links, people.
Post the link.
A lot of links.
Any other thoughts on this song?
I would just add something. This song is actually probably one of my favorites on the album, and it takes me back to the time that I actually heard it because I was actually going through my first heartbreak, and it just actually resonates with me even to this day because I've been through it. You know what I mean by that? And so it's an important song to me, for sure, from this band.
Isn't it wonderful, though, those things that you can go back to and what you're talking about, you remember a certain time in your life and it's so visual in your mind.
Yeah.
That's what music can do for you in all sorts of ways.
Right.
And I just love that. Even if maybe it's a moment in time that you wasn't great for you, of course,
right?
But that you go back to and you remember that. And
no, but it helped because then the next song cured me.
Yeah, well, great. Yeah.
Any idea what Dave is saying at the end there?
Well, I've got my own version. I think he's saying Sounds much better, Annie. Sounds much better like that, or something like that.
I thought he said it sounds much better, Anne, or something like it sounds
Maybe
much better.
better,
Yeah,
Annie.
that's what I
Something
thought
like
too.
yeah.
But it sounds much better, definitely.
Well, it's interesting because this isn't like a monster single like some of the songs on the flip side of the album, but to me, it's certainly not filler, and it's, you know, it does have some of the vibes of some of the early albums, but it maintains the unique sound of this album. So, once again, another song that checks all the boxes for me.
Killer, love it.
Yep. All right, well, we're used to Eurythmics albums. You know, it ends with "The City Never Sleeps," "Revenge," "Paint a Rumor." We get a different kind of ending on this album.
Better than rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I remember my babysitter, Amy Edgerton. I was 10. She was babysitting me, and she read the lyrics of the song. She's like, "This sounds like an amazing song." And she listened to the song and didn't like it. I never forgot that. But I love this song. It's kind of there's just a lot of energy, a lot of emotion, a lot of depth. I feel like you get a little Sweet Dreams in the last few seconds of it.
Yeah.
With the synthesizer coming in.
Yeah.
But then it's got a full-on orchestral, lots of orchestral sweeps.
Is
It's
it,
almost-
is it
The
their
song should have been a
longest?
single.
Is it their longest title? Better to have lost in love than never to have loved at all. Is it the longest? Is
Probably.
It? Yeah.
Catch up boys.
It's
I think it's a
such
weird
yeah.
closing track. I mean, I almost think It's Alright, Baby's Coming Back would have been a better closing track. Because it's like a little more mellow to like ease you out. This one is like, it's almost like you're ready to keep going, and then it's like, nope, it's over. Fuck.
So I feel like it just has this, it has this wall of sound, almost like the Supremes. You know what I mean? Like there's just a wall of sound that hey, 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 that only happens one time in the song. Just a really interesting, sad song, like melancholy. You have it goes from minor key to major key in the chorus. They have some bells. Then it gets minor key again. Then it just kind of descends into chaos, as relationships do.
And on this subject of like empowerment, like sisters are doing it for themselves, and this one, another good lesson. Be yourself tonight, good lesson. Sisters are doing it themselves, good lesson. And this one, better to have loved than to have never loved at all. Better, good lesson.
Right.
Yeah.
Go Annie.
Go Annie. Thank you for shaping my childhood.
Thank you for making my childhood.
And Annie stuck with me. Because Diva was as important to me as a late teenager as this album was to me. So that's just why I love her. And then Bear, like, I'm sure everyone in this podcast, like, she just was by our side through our whole lives. And we have another chapter coming up soon, which I can't wait. Any other thoughts on Better to Have Lost in Love than Never to Have Loved?
Who do you think she was? Because, lyrically, the last lyric, "So the fated lovers turn to enemies," that almost makes me think, like, it's sort of about her ex.
I have one.
Or it could also be about Dave.
Yeah.
Theories?
I always thought it was about me. Like, I always put myself in the song was so personal that I put the relationship that I was in at the time. Which is, I guess,
it's more generic than that. Maybe it's just a general observation of what she's been through, maybe.
What do you think, John? Who do you think it's about?
I kind of think, if you look at it kind of chronologically, it could be about her relationship with Radha Rahman, who was her husband, that she married around the Touch era.
Yeah.
Touch,
Yeah.
Possibly,
Well, I think-
maybe.
Well, she talks about it. And I don't think a lot of songwriters do that. There's probably something there, some nugget that is a personal bit, and then it evolves into something else.
Sure.
So I think there has to be something that is.
There's inspiration from.
Yeah, inspiration. Yeah.
What do you think is up with the little Sweet Dreams throwback at the end? What were they doing there?
Doing
Just
what
reminding
they
us who they are.
Yeah. Remember who we are, bitch.
Remember
Exactly.
us? We're those people.
They did it again on the Peace album.
Right.
Yeah.
And speaking of long song titles, it kind of reminds me because this is around the same time that they were doing that concept thing, that TV, what was it,
Oh,
with
yes.
George Harrison,
Oh,
Yes.
TV.
which is where all, yeah,
Mm.
what was it, TVC,
TVC. That was yeah. I thought that was more revenge era, but yeah.
I think it was 87.
Well, I have to dig through the archives to see when that was, because I remember them mentioning it in the fan club, and that's where all the little bonus tracks from the box set and the remasters, some of those tracks came from, because they were supposed to release. They were working on a concept album or they were working on a film with George Harrison that never went to production.
Okay.
But they recorded all these cover songs, so they did. That's when they did the Smiths cover. They did the Doors cover, and nothing ever materialized. And it was actually Dave's production company, Oil Factory, that they were producing the film. But it was supposed to be some kind of a sci-fi, science fiction type film, and that's where all those. I think except for Satellite of Love, because that was earlier, but all the other cover versions that they did were from that project.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when I was talking about lyric title lengths, reminds me of, there was a whole heck of a lot of Smith songs that
Oh yeah.
had really long titles, and it kind of, and in the similar vein, like so many of them are very melancholy.
Yeah.
I felt like this, and it's all. Do you guys remember going to a record store? You'd flip over the back cover and read the album titles, and then you got a vibe from an album. And there were a lot of like really long, intricate titles on this album. Like "There Must Be an Angel Playing with My Heart," "Sisters Are Doing It for Them." Like it wasn't like Julia or Sex Crime. Better to Have Lost in Love.
Short or really long.
Right. And I think that added to kind of the mystique of this album was, you're just getting something pretty deep and pretty layered and pretty thick, and that just like the length of the song titles. So, do you want to touch on these B-sides a little bit? We don't have to do the live versions or remix, but what was that French one that you guys like? I'm like, what's that French
song? Two Legged song. It's a cover
I adore it. Just
of Francois Hardy, who's a famous French pop singer.
I think she died like last year.
Yeah, recently.
Yeah.
And they ended the Sweet Dreams tour with it live.
That's right, they sure did. And they didn't record it proper till Be Yourself Tonight, or was this just an old recording that they finally threw on a B-side?
I think it was an old recording, because they said it was on a 4-track recorder, recorded in like a hotel.
I thought it was always on a train or something. Yeah. But in any event, but I'm so glad they used it somewhere, because it's so good.
And
I love the concert version. I always love that. And then we got this studio version. It was such a treat to finally get it.
And then, of course, the cover of Hello, I Love You. The drums at the beginning, Jeffrey, you'll appreciate this, remind me a little of Erotic City. I thought it had Erotic City vibes.
I'm a huge Doors fan, and obviously a huge Eurythmics fan, and I pretty much think Eurythmics are perfect and they never do anything wrong. Except this one. This, to me, is like a disaster. It's like there's no feeling at all, and it's like she didn't get the song, which it's like I can't believe it, because it's like every vocal she ever does is so great and so alive and artistic, and this one is like the most generic, boring. It's unbelievable. I was listening to the album again today, and I was like, man, I can't believe how bad this is. And I want to make one more comment on the French song, that with Spotify, they have the lyrics. I'd never thought to look up what they were saying, and obviously I'm into it phonetically, and I don't speak French. So actually reading the words, I'm like, wow, I was like there was a couple times where I thought she was even speaking English. And it was in French. I was like, wow.
You know what's interesting? Oh, and I need to read Nick's Better to Have Lost in Love before we forget. He said, the synth string riff adds a mysterious dimension to the composition, and the chorus provides an interesting contrast with the more melancholic and slightly brooding verses. A good way to close the album. So that was Nick's final thought. But I talked about this on the recent Fleetwood Mac podcast that, you know, I feel like in the Spotify age, and I've done this myself as a musician, you tack on these bonus tracks because you don't know where else to put them. But I almost feel like it does a disservice to the album because listening to these 9 songs and then having it trailing off to nothing after Better to Have Lost in Love, I feel like you just lose that tacking these bonus tracks on that. Because someone that didn't realize that Better to Have Lost in Love might not realize that was the last song. Does it say bonus tracks? Like, we know they are. But I feel like I kind of wish they sat somewhere else. Because just that moment of contemplation and silence after the last song, I think is so important to me as an album listener. And I don't need that version of Hello, I Love You at all.
Does anybody like that version by any chance?
I'm not a fan of it. It sounds like Eurythmics barely, I don't think they really ever released demo versions, but that's about the most demo, you know.
John, yeah, exactly what I was going to say. I've always thought that because it never got finished, it like as you were saying, it never got off the ground. What, you know, they talked about it and talked about it and talked about it, but it never happened. I'm convinced that these are pretty much demo versions of what they were going to do, and I think that's why it is almost so staid, and it's not the only one that really succeeds, and I don't think it succeeds as much as it could, is Last Night I Dreamt.
Yeah, the Smith song. Yeah,
and it's the best one of the lot. And I think again, I think it's still a demo version, and I think if these had been fleshed out, I wonder what they could have been. And because it was so built up, we'd heard about them and then we're like, oh, we're going to get them spaced out on all the remasters. And it wasn't.
I think it's very much. I mean, it was great to hear them on the remasters, but it was also kind of like it just seemed like they were kind of appeasing the fans,
right?
Yeah, a bit, you know, because we've all been desperate for good remasters of all the B-sides, and they just, you know, unlike other artists of, you know, the 80s like The Cure and Susie, who released like everything, including they've done B-side box sets,
right?
You know, we don't get the sort of treatment. You know, it obviously it makes sort of the hunt for those elusive singles kind of more fun, but at the same time, like, you know, it would be nice to sort of, for completists, to be able to hear them.
I feel if Jimmy from the Blondie podcast that stops in here sometimes was here, he'd be like, "Goodbye, I don't love you."
Well, I think it speaks to, you know, Annie would never release demos and stuff. I mean, you get this sense from her, if what you get on the final album, that's what I want you to hear.
Right.
Anything else, I don't want you to hear. And, you know, and I've bought a lot of, you know, just as you all were saying, you know, a lot of the remaster albums that people have done with all the, you know, the various demos. You know, you can listen to them once and say, that's interesting. You don't go back and listen to most of them.
No.
So there's a reason they didn't release it.
Right.
And I guess we can live with that. It's cool to have it, but...
And I think it's always interesting to hear a work in progress, but I like the final versions.
Yeah. Well, good podcast.
All right, and did I cut off somebody? Did anyone have any final thoughts before we get to our final ranking?
If I could go back to, and this is more for you, Jeremy, if I could go back to Better to Have Lost in Love than Never to Have Loved at All, that is a long title, I will say, give me Annie's Hey Haze, and you're welcome, and you're welcome, Madonna, for Rescue Me.
Oh, okay. Hey.
The shade.
All right, so Nick's summary of the album, he gave it a 9.3, you guys. He said, having listened to several Eurythmics albums, I now understand why many people list them as one of their favorite bands. Their first few albums took a while to appreciate, but I found this album to be immediately accessible and satisfying. So I'm going to start just at the top and work my way down. Be Yourself Tonight on a scale of 1 to 10, the Phonogenics 101 scale. Mike from New Zealand, with the beautiful collection that you always share with us. How do you rank this album?
Well, the problem with this album is that it polarizes me because it contains some of my favorite all-time Eurythmics songs and some of my least favorite all-time Eurythmics songs. So if you're talking about an album in its continuity, I'm going to have to say a 7 out of 10 because of There Must Be an Angel and Sisters. I can't go there. The rest of it is sublime. So yeah. If I could listen to B-side over and over and over. Hey.
All right.
7 out of 10.
Lynn, I'm glad you were with us tonight. What would you rank Be Yourself Tonight?
Well, I would probably say 9.8.
Oh.
Pretty high. It would be higher if it wasn't for Sisters. But because it had Ball and Chain and Conditioned Soul and Better to Have Loved It, that one, the one with the title, I can't even say it now, I'm getting tired. That, makes up for Sisters.
Mr. Jeffrey Dicker, also known as G.
9.5.
Dog.
G-Dog, 9.5?
Yeah, it has so many strong songs, and like the songs that are not as strong are not bad, they're just not as strong. And so to be a perfect 10 would have to be like every song would be like so strong. So but there's I don't think there's a bad song on the record, and I could listen to the majority of it obsessively on repeat and have been for 40 years, because I guess it turns 40 this year. So
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, it's hard to believe that. I mean, Would I Lie to You? When like in the 80s, like, growing up, all the hits they played to death, and you heard them everywhere, and like Would I Lie to You was one of those. Mm-hmm. I'm not sick of it. I never have. I mean, Here Comes the Rain Again, I've gotten sick of over the years. Sweet Dreams, I've gotten sick of over the years, and then you return to it. But Would I Lie to You, all day long.
All right, John, what do you rank Be Yourself Tonight?
I think that given the sort of trajectory the album took them in, and sort of their bold change, barring the couple of songs that are also sort of my lesser favorites, I'm giving it around about a 8.5.
All right.
Yeah.
Jim.
I'm gonna have to say, mainly because when I look at this album, it like starts off, with a bang, it ends with a bang, and I love that, how it starts off, it gets you going, and then you slow down a little bit with Conditioned Soul and Adrian, and It's Alright, and then boom, you're right back into it at the end of the album. I think that's a great way to start and end an album. So I'm going to have to agree with everybody that Sisters and Angel, even though I love There Must Be an Angel, I do feel like they're kind of the outliers in that album. So I'd have to give it a 9.
A 9?
Yeah.
Mr. Mark Stevens, Eurythmics, Be Yourself Tonight, scale of 1 to 10. What would you give it?
It's a 10. It's a 10 because every song is great. Every song could have been a single. Most of them, as we said, were released in some fashion. But it's pivotal. It's absolutely pivotal to the success of Eurythmics, and it showed without a doubt what they were capable of. And the beauty of it is that they totally believed in themselves. And I don't think they must have felt the pressure that I think a lot of people, after Sweet Dreams, you would have thought the pressure to produce Touch was astronomical. And then they had 1984, and there was kind of this weird controversy on both sides of the Atlantic for different reasons. And, a lot of people would have been just taken in, like, oh my God, we've got to fix it. We almost that could have ended our career. We've got to fix this. And I don't think they felt any of this kind of stuff. I think they were so confident in what they were doing. And you feel it and see it and hear it in this album. On this album, you just get a sense of what they could do, which was anything. And I think it was, I think it's their pivotal or their highlight. They got to this point, and they proved it to everyone. And they had Aretha Franklin singing with. They had Elvis Costello on there. They had Stevie Wonder. They could do anything. They were so confident. Yet they were still rather young. They're and I just think it's a very important everything about it, and I can listen to any of it all day long. Yeah, it's a 10. I give them a lot of 10s, but it's just it's important. I'll shut up now.
Well, when you see those videos of
Mark's convinced me. I'm raising my 9.7 to a 10.
oh
I was close, but now I just didn't have the nerve that he had to.
Oh, well, when you look at that footage of Annie in the studio, you see how young they were. Like, I thought she was
30 and
older.
32.
Yeah.
30 and 32. I was just doing the math.
Yeah.
Well, David, welcome to the Phonogenics universe. What would you give Eurythmics Be Yourself Tonight?
Okay, so I'm going to raise it a little bit than I was just from learning that it was like one song a day. So that just, to me, blows my mind. So I'm actually going to give it a 10.
Oh!
Yes.
Wow.
I think I've convinced Mike to go to a 10. I just know I have. I know I have.
I'll go to 7.5.
Well, I knew my rating before anyone even said anything. Now, I feel like Jeffrey always accuses me of being too generous with my ratings. Is that true? You make fun of me because I give everything a fucking 10. You know what? I give this album a fucking 10 because there's nothing. I don't love Angel or Sisters, but what else could be in their place? That's what made the album what it was. That ride. Those are two monster singles that reinvented them. Those singles had such an important place in their history and their trajectory. And I'm feeling a little bit more romantic in my older age, so I must also be talking to an angel. And in 2025, sisters better be doing it for them fucking selves because we need you to.
And no one else is.
Oh, yes.
Yep. So, Be Yourself Tonight. Never have I ever skipped a song on this album. I start the CD and I play all 9 songs every fucking time because it's a perfect album. Even the songs I don't love, perfect. Okay, I'm done. I love our podcast. You guys are just the best. We're gonna do this again next month with a thorn in our side when tomorrow comes. I will see some of you for Deaf, Dumb, and Blonde in February. And stay safe out there. Let's all lean on each other in the moments of doubt and fear. And let's have this music that brings us together. I just love the Eurythmics Phonogenics family. So thanks to the Patreon subscribers. You help pay the bills. And thanks to the subscribers. And I'm going to shut the fuck up and upload this right now. Because I love this discussion. I can't wait to watch it again. So I'll see you all next month.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.